So, hello everyone, once again from just, the worst timeline ever. And yeah, just going to be talking about Israel and what it's doing to Gaza again. This has been stressing me out really badly for like a whole week. I know I'm very privileged, of course, none of this actually affects me directly. But mentally, it's been really like hard on me and fun game for people. See if you can see parts of my face twitch when this video is going on, because since like 2019 I had some like big neurological attack from stress. It's just a symptom I get when I get stressed. Like my tongue right now is numb and I'm just stressed from just following what's happening because it's just so depressing. And yeah, like it's just very radicalizing. Like I'm already like as radicalized as a leftist can be. Like I already understand that nothing is going to change unless the fundamental power structures of the world are actually overthrown. Like there's no hope in terms of electoral capitalist democracy. And I think nothing shows that more than every political party in every Western country all towing the same line that Israel has the right to defend itself, even if that means completely destroying Gaza as even a Palestinian territory, which it seems to be the goal right now. And we're watching this unfold in real time. And one more thing I want to ask people. I tried to ban IDF ads from my channel, but the process of actually removing them is actually hard. I actually need the link to the page the ad takes you to. So if you get an IDF ad on this video, can you please click on it, go through to the page, and can you post the link in the comments? And I'll be reading the comments a lot, so I'll probably see this just so I can then go on my AdSense and actually stop those ads from running, because someone said they saw them the other day. But sorry about that, little intro. Today, what we're actually going to be talking about is the left, and we're going to be talking about woke liberals who are siding with Israel, like Neil Druckmann, the director and writer of both Last of Us games and the show, with both games being inspired by Israel-Palestine, and actually being a criticism of the Israeli government and the IDF in some ways. Seems he forgot the message of his own games as he comes out in support of Israel. Then I want to talk about like maybe a few other celebrities. And then I just want to talk about the relative silence with some leftist content creators. Now, I'm not going to start any drama. I'm not going to start dropping names. Maybe one name, because I did call them out on Twitter. But generally, there's a lot of leftists who will not touch this issue. A lot of leftist content creators, and I'll say it, it's a lot of leftist video essayists who seem to be able to tweet about loads of stuff, stream about loads of stuff, make videos on second channels about loads of stuff. When it comes to Israel, they have nothing to say. And I've noticed this for a long time. I've noticed it especially since 2021 with what happened in Gaza then and how loads of people didn't say anything. And they're doing it right now as well. And it's just super disappointing. Again, I spoke to some of these people before. They probably don't even know I'm talking about them. But there's a lot of them. And it's actually kind of hard to spot grifters on the left. And I wouldn't call these people grifters in that they take political positions for money. But I also think they don't talk about certain political things because it will hurt their brand and their money. And one person I am going to talk about is hbomberguy, a guy who makes obscene amounts of money on Patreon and talks about politics, but seemingly when people asked him to say something about this, he said he didn't know enough. So can't say anything. Can't take 5 minutes out of your busy schedule, which it seems like isn't that busy, to actually read a book maybe. So all of that coming up for you today, and there will be spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2. If you don't want that game spoiled, if you haven't played it, there's going to be timestamps, so just fast forward to me talking about something else. And the one good thing about social media is I've seemed to personally made Neil Druckmann delete his tweet and make hbomberguy put up a link to a Palestinian charity. So I guess I'm doing something good on Twitter. But all of that coming up for you today. And, same as usual, social medias. I'm posting a lot on my Instagram, posting a lot of like shorter videos about the conflict. I'm also doing this on my second YouTube channel, the Kavernacle Extra. So if you want to keep following me and me talking about this stuff, go check that out. But yeah, let's get into this video. So Neil Druckmann is the director and writer of The Last of Us Part 2, and also one of the main showrunners on The Last of Us HBO show, and he directed an episode 2. And Someone I admire as a creative. I really like his work. I really like The Last of Us. And although I had my criticisms of a depiction of Israel-Palestine in The Last of Us, and I made a whole video on it, so go check it out if you want more detailed analysis of the politics of that game, including comments from Druckmann himself on the politics. I thought it was like a liberal Zionist message about like peace and about how this cycle of revenge will never help anyone. But my problem with the second game was it kind of admits that one side is really the instigator of this conflict. So I'm going to talk about what Druckmann posted first on his social medias in response to what's happening, and then I'll compare that to the message of especially The Last of Us Part 2, which is just so ironic. Like, I've never seen someone so recently write something and talk about the politics of something he's made, only to seemingly go against the message of his own product, of his own piece of art, like so quickly. He only just made the show like last year, and he's already going back on like the politics of it. So in response to everything that happened, he posts an Israeli flag, which seems quite nationalistic in response to obviously the attack on Israel and Israeli settlements. But this was after they started responding, so you're already a bit like, oh, okay, you've taken a side and you know what they're going to do. And then he followed that up with this mealy-mouthed post by Alex Edelman, who just seems like absolute trash. And I criticised his post last time for basically saying violence is bad. Well done, you're so brave. And Druckmann said, I'm finding it difficult to articulate my complicated thoughts on what's going on in my homeland. Multiple people that are very close to me have been affected. This post by Alex Edelman captures some of my feelings quite well. I'll leave it here and step away from the social media for a while. I pray this terrible conflict gets resolved peacefully in our lifetime. Now, if he just posted this on his social media, like just this, no Israeli flag before, I'd be like, okay, like whatever. This guy literally grew up in a West Bank illegal settlement, and we're going to get into that settlement in a sec, which believed in like an extremist form of Zionism. So all things considered, I don't think that's the worst coming from a guy who was born into like this kind of cult-like mentality. But he wasn't done. So obviously you saw this story going around, which seems to have been grossly exaggerated and pushed mainly by right-wing Israeli media. Although I have seen obviously some of these photos, thanks to the IDF, advertising them on like every Twitter post, which is insane that I have to just see that randomly on Twitter without even like censoring it. But that's, you know, whatever Elon Musk is allowing these days. But Druckmann comes out saying, pure evil. This is what Israel is defending herself from. Reminder that Hamas's charter calls for the complete destruction of Israel. Given the opportunity, they do this to every man, woman, child, and baby in Israel. Never again. Never again, of course, the slogan that Israel basically used to justify all their crimes. Basically, we're never going to be victims again, so we'll do whatever we want to stop that, including just the most heinous crimes. So, yeah, seems completely contrasting to his earlier statement that, you know, he just wants an end to violence, it's complicated, he's personally affected, to, oh, let's bang the drums of war, let's not give Hamas this chance, we must destroy Gaza. Essentially, he's endorsing the Israeli government's disgusting actions here, right? Super ironic considering the game he made. So I post underneath, and it was on the way to ratioing his comment, because obviously so many people were shocked that a guy who made a game like The Last of Us Part 2 was talking like this. So I wrote, The Last of Us Part 2 seems to have some sort of message about a cycle of revenge that ironically you could actually learn from right now, instead of endorsing disproportionate Israeli reprisals that is amounting to just a slaughter. Again, isn't that a plot point in Part 2? Like, the ending of Part 2 is literally about the WLF doing what the IDF are doing right now. So, Druckmann took it down and he said, I stand by my last post, hate the platform I created for some vile comments. I hurt for the innocent that truly want peace, that are caught in this conflict on both sides. I don't have solutions, I just know that committing, justifying, or celebrating terror ain't it. I don't know, but I'm guessing maybe my tweet might have resonated a bit in terms of, like, you're an absolute massive hypocrite, that you've made a game about why cycles of violence are bad and how that creates people wanting blind revenge, seemingly going against the very message of your game, but still not great considering everything he's posted. So one more thing to note as well about Neil Druckmann is he grew up in an illegal West Bank settlement, and I was trying to find out what one it was. So it's this one. So it was established in 1981. It was recognized as a local council in 1989, and in 2004 it merged with Ofarim. So Beit Ariah was named for the former Knesset member Ariah ben Elisa, a prominent revisionist Zionist leader who was among the founders of Harut. The land was confiscated by Israel from two nearby Palestinian villages, Aboud and Al-Laban al-Gharbi. Just talks about the expansion here, and revisionist Zionism is a form of Zionism which is characterized by territorial maximalism. Revisionist Zionism promoted expansionism and the establishment of a Jewish majority on both sides of the River Jordan. So a lot of people aren't like super educated about Zionism or Israel in general, and I don't think you have to be honest, to condemn what they're doing right now. But basically, a lot of the original Zionists who founded the state of Israel were socialists, they were secular, they were atheists, they didn't really care about the religious stuff. They just wanted a homeland for Jewish people to keep themselves safe from oppression. And back in the day, they didn't actually even care about it being in Palestine because they weren't religious. So the significance of it being in the old territory of Israel, the kingdom of Judea, they didn't care. But eventually, yes, because of geopolitics and everything, they went to Israel itself. A lot of religious Zionists did want this. And revisionist Zionism is more religious. And it's about, we must just reestablish the whole biblical kingdom of Israel. And that is what Neil Druckmann was raised in. I'd be a bit more sympathetic if his own statement was just peace on both sides, blah, blah, blah. But coming out and supporting Israel while they're doing what they're doing, it's probably not surprising. But it also makes me rethink The Last of Us Part 2's politics. Now, Hallie Gross, who's the co-writer, was basically liking everything Neil Druckmann was saying, so you can probably take from that she agrees with his politics on this stuff. And it actually appears that most liberal-inclined celebrities are all just massive Israel supporters. I literally have unfollowed every single celebrity. But more on the politics of The Last of Us Part 2, right? So Neil Druckmann there just coming across as, a massive Zionist who supports what the Israeli government are doing right now. But the way it contradicts the message of the game is just so insane to me. So again, spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2. In The Last of Us Part 2, the context of the game is that when you go to Seattle, there is a war going on between a group called the WLF and the Seraphites. And it's pretty clear to anyone who knows about Israeli politics that this is inspired by both the IDF and Palestinian insurgents, let's say. It doesn't have to be something like Hamas, but it could be them in this context. It could be the PLO, but these Seraphites are religious fundamentalists, so let's just say it is a stand-in for Gaza. The WLF are more secular, they're more like LGBT friendly, which is actually a plot point of the game, because the Seraphites aren't, because one of the characters is on the run because they're transgender. Now, in that, you see this conflict, and basically the whole point of the character of Abby is kind of like recognizing this shared humanity between her and Lev, this transgender teenager who is running from the Seraphites, and they both leave their tribal affiliations and create like this new like sister-brother bond, right? And it's about how you're leaving behind that. Like, it's not good for anyone to have such tribal mentality, which just leads to endless conflict. Now, at the end of the game, the context is you actually go to the Seraphite Island to rescue Lev, who's gone back to try and save his mother and stuff. And you go there while the WLF invade. And they invade with a specific goal to wipe out the island and all the Seraphites in it. Literally said by the leader of the WLF called Isaac. Now, of course, you're seeing parallels about that right now. The WLF see all Seraphites as guilty for the war they're fighting with them, so they must all go. It's literally happening right now in Israel in a game which is actually inspired by Israel-Palestine, right? This guy I just showed you all this stuff from, he wrote that. He directed that. That's his idea. He said all this stuff is inspired by Israeli politics. Even in the game with the Fedra zones, you see towers which resemble the West Bank, which he probably saw growing up, right? It's so inspired by this stuff. And even the core message with Abby and Ellie is similar about how from certain points of view, you can justify horrible violence to each other, and that's like the human condition. And it's showing at the end of the game, not going to do a massive spoiler, but rejecting that is a good thing because it breaks a cycle of violence which could continue for generations. That is the game this guy made. And that's what he tweets when the conflict comes out again, right? It's literally him watching his game back. Oh yeah, I support the WLF actually invading the island. Isaac was right. Abby was wrong. Lev was wrong. The Seraphites all deserve it. Isaac was right, I back him. Like, how insane is that? A villainous character in his game, he is now basically on the side of. And it just shows you someone like him probably has a lot of issues to work through growing up in this, like, revisionist Zionist settlement or whatever as a kid. It seems like that hasn't all gone away, despite him being, like, a pretty progressive guy, directing a game with, like, pretty good LGBT representation. You have, like, a lesbian couple, you have a transgender teenager, you have a lot of good stuff like that, have seemingly like a decent enough political message, seems to be pretty critical of the Israeli government since it's so clear they're in the game, including the IDF as well. And he turns around and says, oh, actually, yeah, I support that. And I support the mentality, which I actually said is bad in my game. Just shows you how fickle his political message was, because when it actually came to the reality, he couldn't act like the character in his game. He couldn't act like Ellie in his game, which is meant to be seen as like a good thing that Ellie did. He's literally making the opposite choice to Ellie at the end of The Last of Us Part 2, which is just crazy to me. But I thought I'd share that because it's just funny admiring someone a lot, seeing them post something really gross, tweeting at them, which seemingly makes them back down, but they still kind of stand by. I don't know. It was a weird interaction for me. And it's just depressing, among other things. Obviously, nothing compared to what people on the ground in Gaza are facing, but just everyone I thought I liked as an artist. And, you know, I'm quite tolerant sometimes of not agreeing with people's politics, and I follow a lot of people, and I know they're more like liberal and stuff, and I'm a leftist, and I think that's fine. But the way they've justified what Israel have done, to me, I'm just like, I can't. It's too depressing. You're so brainwashed, and it makes me sick that you're supporting this. And one of the worst has been Amy Schumer. This is something that's been going on, right? They've been weaponizing like woke liberal sentiment to try and get people to support Israel. She's posting Martin Luther King quotes. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. She's talking about Israel. She's talking about Israel being a victim here and posting Martin Luther King to try and get support. Insane. Whose side do you think Martin Luther King would be on? Whose side do you think black civil rights leaders were on? Because this hasn't just been going on since Friday last week or Saturday morning. It's been going on since these people were actually alive themselves. So you can go read Malcolm X quotes on Palestine if you want. See what he said. See what a load of black civil rights leaders said, where they linked the struggle with the Palestinians and a lot of people in the Middle East and North Africa with the struggle of black Americans against their own segregationist government, right? And it's just insane. Again, she posts something like this. It's time for American liberals to finally wake up and recognize what's happening. To all of those who consider yourselves human rights and social justice advocates, to all of you passionate college students, to all of you who identify as progressives, whose mission is a fair and equitable world, what you've just witnessed had nothing to do with Palestinian freedom or justice. Basically goes on to talk about how the attack on Israel last week has nothing to do with the apartheid regime. She doesn't even call it apartheid regime. It's just an attack on the Jewish faith, which is just absolutely insane, right? Again, weaponizing woke sentiment like, you're an SJW, aren't you? So support the apartheid state. Can you imagine, like, in the 1980s, someone doing this? Like, you claim to love civil rights. You claim to speak up for the marginalized. So support apartheid South Africa against Nelson Mandela and the ANC. Like, how insane is that? But thankfully, for her, we've demonized Muslims so much. Most Westerners, even liberals, they don't see Muslims as human. So when you say this stuff, oh, who are you going to side with? The people who speak English, and a lot of them are actually from your country, or are you going to side with scary brown people? A lot of liberals, they don't care, right? And that's how so many people support the Iraq war as well. It's literally we're doing a repeat. 20 years later, we have learnt nothing. It's the exact same stuff. Most Americans support this terrible thing, just like they did 20 years ago. It's like driving me insane. Like, it's so radicalizing. How do I even get more radicalized? Can I go more radical than like a Maoist or something? Again, you have more stuff. Jews marched in Selma. Jews marched for George Floyd. Jews showed up for BLM. BLM is a disgrace. We will all still be there for you guys next time because that's who we are. But now we know who you are. BLM were always pro-Palestine. I remember David Pacman, who similarly had terrible take on this as well, but he always does. He was saying back in the day that BLM linking the struggles between Palestinians and black people in America was also wrong. And then he literally said Malcolm X supported Israel as well in that video. It was insane. I made a whole video on this before. But again, like you see, weaponizing woke sentiments to try and guilt people. Like, support apartheid. Support the country that tried to give apartheid South Africa nuclear weapons. These people are so historically illiterate. And, you know, a lot of these people are fairly smart. And it makes me wonder, like, how do you even have this worldview? And it reminds me of Seth Rogen saying, when he went to a very Jewish school as a kid, they told him Israel was just a desert with no one in it, and they created, like, a great country there, right? And with that knowledge, it's probably not surprising that so many supposed liberal Jewish people in America, they think that people not liking Israel and calling it apartheid and stuff, it's all because we don't like Jewish people. Not that it's the reality. Because they're brainwashed to think that, oh my God, these people after World War II, they went and set up this like amazing country. Finally, they could defend themselves and they'll never go back to being a victim. Never forget. But then they're never taught the actual history that people had lived there for centuries. You can't just go steal their homes and just do terrible things to them and then act like everyone who is against that is some sort of racist. And black people should actually support the people doing stuff that is very similar to what the American government have done to them historically. Like, absolutely insane. So that's for the liberals there. Like, I'm criticising liberals. Like, Neil Druckmann might be, you know, one of those leftist Zionists, but still doesn't make him a leftist in my book. Amy Schumer is a liberal. Don't know who that other person is, but let's just say they're a liberal as well. Now let's get on to leftists, right? So it feels, you know, generally, I have a lot of problems with American leftists, generally. I think American leftists in particular display a lot of Western chauvinism and actual racism as well. But I will say, I feel like since I've become a leftist YouTuber back in 2018, I feel like leftist YouTubers, Twitch streamers have been pretty good on Israel, right? Like, I don't have a problem with a lot of them on this particular issue. But I do actually have a problem with a lot of YouTubers and Twitch streamers who just don't talk about it. And yeah, fair enough. We don't always talk about it, everyone. I do have people saying that I talk about it too much, which I don't think I do, but I do talk about it a fair bit. Made a video a couple of weeks ago about all these Gen Z congressmen all supporting Israel. I talk about it a fair bit. But some people never talk about it. And they don't even talk about it in times of crisis. 2014, 2021, or right now as well. And like I was saying earlier, I'm not saying people are grifters, but I think there are people who are very concerned about their reputation and get used to their standing or their income and don't want to jeopardize that with something they see as controversial. Now, for a lot of leftist people, this issue is not controversial. Like, I am not making this video thinking, oh, I'm so brave for going against my audience, because I know 98% of you who have subscribed to me for longer than a week, you'll all agree with me, right? So I don't worry about that because I'm always honest. I always talk about my politics, and because I upload so much, you guys know my opinions on pretty much everything. So it's not going to come as a shock to you how I feel about this moment right now. But I will say breadtubers, leftist video essayists, are absolute trash when it comes to this. And I've made a mental note for a long time. People I've had nice interactions with, people I might have even collabed with, people I chat with in DMs. I've made a note in my head, especially since 2021, oh, like, that's weird. They're not even tweeting about this. Not even one post. Like, it's not that they're not making videos about it, and that's fair enough. You know, if you're a video essayist, you're making maybe like 2 or 3 videos a year. I don't expect you necessarily to make a whole video on this, but you are quite active on social media. You have massive followings. Some of these people have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and mainly Twitter, and you can't say anything. And then hbomberguy put out a statement today. If I'm not tweeting about an extremely important topic, it's because I am not good enough at phrasing how I feel in a way that would be at all productive. I don't tweet to win points in times of crisis. I do it when I feel like I have anything useful to say, and I just don't. What happened and what happened in response and how social and traditional media reacted to every step will be talked about for many years. I'd much rather be documenting it while it's fresh than pretending I have a take anywhere near as educated as it needs to be. And I wrote to him, you make more money on Patreon in a month and a half than I do in a good year. You have a massive platform and choose to say nothing, and it's pretty obvious part of the reason is your brand. How about spend a day and get educated and then say something? how old are you and how long have you been making leftist content? Then he actually retweeted someone tweeting about Palestine, and he actually posted a link to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. I don't know if he did that because I specifically called him out. A lot of people were in his comments. I did it just before, and a couple other people did that I follow. So maybe, you know, we shamed him into having an opinion. But I just want to go back to his original tweet, because I think it's trash, but I think it reflects like a lot of people who are breadtube essayists, in that, you know, they make a lot of videos on different things, but they don't feel comfortable talking about this. He's talking about like not being able to phrase it, it's not going to be productive. He's saying, you know, he doesn't have a take as educated as it needs to be. And this like blows my mind because he's being a coward. Because if he said, I really don't know much about this issue, I'm learning, but at the very least from what I've read, I can say this is wrong and this is terrible what's happening. How hard is that? How hard is that? Read one news story, like, I don't know, read one news story in The Guardian on Novara Media and you'll think it's bad because they've told you the relative like facts of the matter, right? That's just him being a coward. And he's reflective of a lot of leftists like him, a lot of video essayists in particular, who say nothing because they're scared. And they can tell themselves, oh, I'm not educated about it. Most people who talk about this issue online aren't necessarily super educated on it. That doesn't matter, right? I'm someone who is educated on it. I know a lot of stuff about this period in history. You know, I did a master's degree in international relations, like did loads of stuff in the Middle East, wrote my whole master's thesis on the first Gulf War, which obviously has a lot of issues with Israel involved in it. And it's like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. But even if I was a left-wing person who didn't know this and I just consumed the news and I saw what was happening, I would know what side is bad. And then, if I wasn't sure, I could go listen to Palestinian leftists, I could go listen to general leftists who just know what they're talking about on this issue and think, oh, you know, this is really bad what's happening, and I like what they're saying about this matter. And a lot of you guys in my last video said I did a good job at outlining about the conflict and stuff, so go watch my video on it. And then you can come out and say, I don't pretend to be an expert, but it's pretty clear what Israel is doing is insane, it's wrong, it's terrible, we should all be against it, and I'm going to lend my voice to that with my absolutely massive platform. We're not even asking for a whole massive video on it. Yeah, you upload like once a year, but you also upload once a year. I don't think you're working 9 to 5 every day, so like I said, spend maybe 5 hours reading, thinking, oh, this is terrible, and I don't know much about it, let me educate myself. You're a smart guy, so pretending you're ignorant about it is so stupid. Like I said, I'm not going to name names of other people, but there's plenty of people like him, and I guess at least he kind of explained why he didn't say anything. But a lot of people just ignore it. Like, I'm literally, you know, seeing people post on everything, and I'm like, are you seriously not saying anything about this right now? Or with your massive platform, where you know so many leftist people in the community, people who, like, you know, follow me, people just like me, other content creators. We all like your stuff. You've spoke to us all. You've come on our channels and stuff, not me specifically, but other ones, and you can't say anything. And yeah, you might think, oh, I'm not going to add anything constructive, like he said there. I'm not going to add anything productive. It doesn't matter. It's just about, you know, if you can change people's mind. hbomberguy and some other, like, leftist video essayists, right? They might not have the traditional leftist communist audience, people who know, yeah, we are against Israel. And that's why it makes you even more valuable, because you're going to tell people who might be unsure, yeah, this is bad, because they respect your opinion. This guy is probably the most popular leftist YouTuber. His Patreon is insane. Like, the amount of money he gets every month, it's just a joke. And in that, he has so much influence, so can't he just, like, platform someone? Can't he just retweet some more stuff? And, you know, fair enough, he's doing that now. It's just not an excuse. And if there's any leftist YouTubers watching this, you've got this far, I doubt it, because I don't think many other leftists watch my content, and I definitely don't think a lot of video essayists watch my content anyway. Just stop being a coward. You might think that's a bit harsh, but just stop being a coward. Everyone's doing this right now. Everyone on the left is posting about this. Everyone is making videos about this. We're not asking you, you know, to make a whole massive 2-hour documentary about something you don't really know about. But if you have, like, thousands and thousands of followers on all your social medias, link to something, link to another video about this, try and educate your followers. Especially if you're a video essayist, you might have a lot more people who are more liberally inclined than leftists. So you can be helpful in that regard. Just like do something, right? And the thing is, I've blocked all the Twitch streamers, so I don't really know what like little like incestuous club of like lib leftist Twitch streamers are saying about this stuff. But again, I'm mainly focusing on leftist YouTubers and video essayists, and most people I know, most people I've collabed with or I talk to, they've all been really good. And I obviously appreciate that. But yeah, just do better, liberals and leftists, because in 5 years' time, you're going to pretend like you were on the right side of history. And you weren't. And I'm not going to forget it. I've got in my head loads of people right now I'm thinking of, and I'm just not going to forget it. If your career as a content creator is more important than having a principled position on something that our governments are enabling, it looks like it's going to be like the worst atrocities carried out in like, I don't know, like 20 years we're going to be seeing over the next week or so. You're not an actual principled leftist. You know, you might like leftist theory, you might like leftist analysis of certain things, but your worldview is pretty tainted if you can't maybe deal with the threat of losing out with a bit of income and subs because you actually spoke out and you were principled. But anyway, that is it for the video. Again, let me know about the IDF and if you see it, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.